Well, welcome.
Nice improv.
Oh, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And thank you to Rocky Mountain Mystery Radio. You're tuned to the RMMWA radio network, the most exciting sound of the 1940s. Tonight, live on location, high atop the glamorous Brown Palace Hotel in scenic Denver, Colorado. It's the Rocky Mountain Mystery Theater, starring the Rocky Mountain Mystery Players and the Rocky Mountain Mystery Singers. Regularly at this time on this channel. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting us into your homes tonight. Tonight's presentation is Damon Runyon's Three Wise Guys. The program will begin in just a moment, but first, please give your attention to this important message from our sponsor.
Snap is the happiest sound around.
I say it's crackle, the crispy sound.
I insist that pop's the sound.
Snap,
Crackle, Rice Krispies.
Listen to the fairy song of health, the merry chorus sung by Kellogg's Rice Krispies as they merrily snap, crackle, and pop in a bowl of milk. If you've never heard food talking, now is your chance.
Snap, crackle, makes the world go round.
The W.K. Kellogg Company, Battle Creek, Michigan. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome now to Act One of Three Wise Guys.
And we're at Goodtime Charlie's Bar, West 49th Street, Manhattan, New York City.
Good afternoon, Broadway. What brings you out so early on Christmas Eve?
I am feeling a touch of the grip and thought I'd drop by for some medicine.
Well, Broadway, Doc Moog says that some rye whiskey and rock candy will relieve the grip most surely.
That is what I have heard from many a citizen along Broadway.
Rock candy and rye it is, then. Now, there is no telling but what you are scattering jimes all over the joint with your touch of the grip. And I must safeguard my patron's health. In fact, I think I will join you with a rock candy and rye of my own. It would not be good for business if I should come down with a touch of the grip myself.
Now, Charlie takes a few doses along with Broadway, and they are both commencing to feel much healthier. When the door opens, and who comes in but a guy by the name of Blondie Swanson. This Blondie Swanson is a big 6'2" guy with straw-colored hair and pink cheeks, and he is originally out of Harlem. It is well known to one and all that in his day he is the largest puller of bootleg goods on the Atlantic seaboard. In fact, for upwards of 10 years, Blondie is bringing in wet goods into New York City from Canada in one place and another, and in all this time, he never gets a fall, which is considered a phenomenal record for an operator as extensive as Blondie.
Hello, Broadway. What brings you into Goodtime Charlie's this Christmas Eve afternoon?
Hello, Blondie. That seems to be a popular line of inquiry today. I might ask the same of you.
Why, I come to Goodtime Charlie's to forget my troubles. You see, it's 2 years this week since Miss Mary Jordan leaves New York and me for Akron, Ohio.
2 years is a long time to carry a torch, Blondie. How about you join me for a touch of rock candy and rye? I personally take it to ward off the grip, but it is well known to cure a case of melancholy as well.
I would consider it a privilege and a pleasure, Broadway, as I've always had something of a sweet tooth.
Here you go, Blondie. It is good to see you after such a long time. I hope and trust that business goes well for you.
I have no business, Charlie. I retire from business.
Well, I have to tell you, Blondie, that if John D. Rockefeller or Henry Ford step up and tell me they retire from business, I would not be more astonished than I am by your statement. And in fact, not as much. I consider your statement the most important commercial announcement I hear in many years, and naturally I have to ask why you make such a decision, and what is to become of thousands of citizens who are dependent on you for merchandise.
I retire from business because I am 100% an American citizen. In fact, I'm a patriot. I served my country in the late war. I am cited at Chateau Theory. I always vote the straight Democratic ticket, except if we figure it's better to elect some Republican. I always stand up when the band plays the Star-Spangled Banner. One year, I even paid my income tax.
Now, Broadway and Charlie know that many of these things are true. Although Broadway remembers hearing rumors that what Blondie is cited for at Chateau Thierry is for not robbing the dead. But of course, he does not speak of these matters to Blondie Swanson because Blondie is not such a guy as will care to listen to rumors and may become indignant. And when Blondie is indignant, he is very difficult to get along with.
I am a booty for a long time, and I supply very, very fine merchandise to my trade, as everybody knows. And it is a respectable business because one and all in this country are in favor of it, except the prohibitionists. But I can see into the future, and I can see that one of these days they are going to repeal the prohibition law, and then it will be most unpatriotic to be bringing in wet goods from foreign parts in competition with home industry. So I retire.
Well, Blondie, your sentiments certainly do you credit. And if we have more citizens as high-minded as you are, this will be a better country.
Well, furthermore, there is no money in booting anymore. Hell, all the booties in this country are broke. I am broke myself. I just lose the last piece of property I own in the world, which is the 25G home I build in Atlantic City, figuring to spend the rest of my days there with Miss Mary Jordan before she takes a powder on me. Well, if I only listen to Miss Mary Jordan, I will now be an honest clerk in a gents' furnishing store with maybe a cute little apartment up around 110th Street and children running all around and about.
I am truly sorry to hear of your troubles and the loss of your home in Atlantic City, Blondie. But I hear, back in the day, that Miss Mary Jordan comes from a very religious family back in Akron, Ohio. And she is taught from childhood that rum is a terrible thing. Personally, I think that way myself, except in cocktails, of course. And you can be sure that, like so many mamas in places like Akron, Ohio, Miss Mary's mama tells her when she leaves for New York to be aware of any guys who come around offering her diamond bracelets and fur coats, because such guys are undoubtedly snakes in the grass and probably on the make.
And with this, Blondie sighs heavily and the Broadway sighs with him, because the romance of Blondie Swanson and Miss Mary Jordan is well known to one and all on Broadway. It goes back a matter of, anyway, 6 years, when Blondie Swanson is making money so fast he can scarcely stop to count it. And at this time, Miss Mary Jordan is the most beautiful doll in this town. And many citizens, including Blondie Swanson, almost lose their minds just gazing at her when she is a member of Mr. Georgie White's Broadway review that he titled Scandals.
I know this to be true, Charlie, because Miss Mary Jordan tells me such things herself. But from the first moment I see Miss Mary and Georgie White's scandals, I am love struck, surely as if Cupid's arrow pierces my ticker. I rush over to Mandel's Five and Dime to pick up a bouquet of roses and a big box of chocolates, and I stand outside the stage door like a silly schoolboy. Well, Miss Mary Jordan is flattered and agrees to join me at the Stork Club for Loster Newburgh, and that's the way it all starts because we hit it off more than somewhat. But when I try to give her trinkets of my affection like ruby bracelets and diamond necklaces, she turns me down flat, saying she is not accepting valuable offerings from any guy, and especially a guy who's engaged in trafficking in the demon rum, because this money is nothing but blood money that comes from breaking the law of the land.
Now, I know that's a bum rap because I know you, Blondie, and I know you never handle a drop of rum in your life, but only scotch. Furthermore, you keep yourself pretty well straightened out with the law.
Besides, you two must have straightened things out because for a couple of years, citizens are seeing you two lovebirds all over Manhattan at places like the Stork Club and 21, and you seem very taken with one another.
But Blondie, I know you are not that sort of guy to let a doll brush him off so easily. Everyone knows you have plenty of charm. Did you not try to woo her back?
This is all true, of course. Miss Mary does not object to going out now and then and putting on the lamb curries and lobster Newburghs, but the very night you see us in the Silver Slipper, Miss Mary tells me, "I will marry you in a minute if you get out of trafficking in rum. I will marry you if you do not have a dime, but you care more for your business than you do for me. So I'm going back to Ohio," she says. "Someday, when you are really through with this terrible traffic you are now engaged in, come to me. But I will never marry you as long as you are dealing in rum, no matter if you have 100 million. And with this, Miss Mary Jordan takes plenty of outdoors on me. At first, I think she's only trying to put a little pressure on me and we'll be back. But as the weeks become months and the months finally count up into years, I can see that she is by no means clowning with me. Furthermore, I never hear from her, and all I know is she's back in Akron, Ohio. Then, one day, I hear that Miss Mary marries some legitimate guy in Akron, and this is a terrible blow to me, indeed. And from this day, I'll never look at another doll again, or anyway, not much.
Naturally, Broadway expresses his deep sympathy to Blondie about being broke and also mentions that his heart bleeds for Blondie at his loss of Miss Mary Jordan. And they have a few doses of rock candy and rye whiskey on both propositions. By this time, Goodtime Charlie runs out of rock candy. And anyway, it is a lot of bother for him to be mixing it up with the rye whiskey. So they have rye whiskey without the rock candy. And nobody notices much difference. Then, while they're standing there at the bar, having their rye whiskey without the rock candy, who comes in but an old guy who goes by the name of the Dutchman.
Hey, you, close that door. You born in a barn?
Now, the Dutchman is known to one and all as a most illegal character in every respect. In fact, folks are somewhat surprised to see him appear in Goodtime Charlie's because the Dutchman is generally on the lam from someplace, and the gendarmes everywhere are always anxious to have a chat with him. As the Dutchman comes in, he takes a gander all around the joint as if he is looking for somebody in particular. And when he sees Blondie Swanson, he moves up alongside him and begins whispering to him.
Speak up, Dutchman. We're all friends here. You can talk freely.
The Dutchman is an old-fashioned looking guy, maybe 50-odd, and he has gray hair. He has a high-pitched voice, almost like a dame, and is always good-natured, even when there is no call for it. And to look at him, you would think there is no more harm in him than there is in a preacher, and maybe not as much.
Hello, Dutchman. I don't think I have seen you here in Goodtime Charlie's. In fact, the last I hear of you, you were in college somewhere out west for highway robbery.
Hello, Broadway. Long time no see. It is true enough that I spent some time out west, but it was an unfortunate case of mistaken identity.
How so, Dutchman?
I mistook a plainclothes copper for a grocery man. Now, let me tell you why I come into Goodtime Charlie's this afternoon looking for Blondie.
Now, you surely have my interest, Dutchman. Why would you be looking for me?
Let me tell you a little story first. It will help you understand why I come looking for you.
That's okay, Dutchman. Blondie's a square guy. He can keep a lid on something, if something needs to have a lid on it. And Charlie is well known for his discretion when it comes to what he overhears at the bar.
Well, this is most certainly a story that needs a lid on it, and I will be unhappy more than somewhat if that lid should come off.
Now, it is no secret that Broadway likes a good story and often writes about them in the rags, but he never uses guys' real names. In fact, these stories are so popular that some of the local citizens come to Broadway and tell him very good stories because they know that he will masquerade them so no interested parties can trace back to their source.
You have no worries, Dutchman. It is well known that I never write a story that troubles anyone, and Charlie's lips are tighter than a priest outside a confessional.
All right, then. But you know that I get very troublesome myself when I am unhappy, right?
We know it well, Dutchman. Right, Charlie?
Oh, we know it to be true, Dutchman, and we do not wish to see you unhappy.
Very well, then. Huddle up over here where it is a little more private. It is about a year ago this very day when I am presented with a most generous proposition from three very classy guys who make quite a good living out of going around knocking off safes in small towns, since the big C safes are much improved and cracking them is a lot of bother. And a guy tips them off about a safe in a steelworks office over in this burg in Pennsylvania. And when the payroll comes in, if he can get a slice of the pie. So, these guys agree that it is a very attractive proposition and agree to cut the local citizen in on the haul, since he tells them that it will sit in a very old safe and amounts to maybe 50 G's. This factory is just across the Jersey line, about 5 miles down the Lehigh River from Allentown. And since we can get there and back in time for Christmas morning, we agree to meet up and head out around sunset on Christmas Eve, figuring by the time we get there it will be dark and all the citizens will be home getting ready for Santa Claus.
That sounds like a very solid plan indeed, Dutchman.
It was, except for one small thing that was not anticipated. See, there's this guy working late, and he puts up quite a fuss before I crack his melon, and we truss him up all nice and tight. But before I give him a nap, he hits the burglar alarm, and it goes off like a banshee. So we stuff the cash in a grip sack and beat a path to the car to make our getaway. But the gendarmes spot us, and there's a chase during which considerable blasting takes place. Well, finally, in all this blasting, the three guys I am with get cooled off. And I am shot up quite some, too. So I grabbed the grip sack with the loot and managed to escape by going across country and hiding here and there.
You were more fortunate to get out of that predicament alive, Dutchman.
Oh, I got out, but just barely. After a few hours of going to place in the countryside, I'm pretty well petered out from my wounds and trying to lug the grip sack when I come up to an old deserted barn that I see, because it is a very bright night when the clouds open up. I decide to stash the grip sack there because there's no chance I can keep lugging it around much longer. I pull up a few boards in the barn, dig a nice hole, and plant the grip sack there, figuring I will come back for it as soon as I am able. I look for a landmark to find the place, but the woods are dark, so I look up and see this star and lock it in my memory, since I can't use the moon because it darts all over the place. And that is how I will find the place again.
I'm starting to get the picture now, Dutchman. It is still there, and you want to get it back.
That is true. But it takes me quite a time to recover from my brush with the gendarmes. And with plenty of time to think, I realize I'm not the spring chicken I used to be. So I think some more, and the first guy I think to help me is one Blondie Swanson. Because I know Blondie Swanson is a very able citizen in every respect. So, my proposition, Blondie, is that I am willing to cut you in for 50%. And 50% of 50 G's is by no means pretzels in these times.
Well, Dutchman, this appeals to me as a legitimate proposition, since from now on I am strictly legit. And there's no doubt this dough is coming to you. I will gladly assist you in this enterprise on the terms you state. But in the meantime, let us have some more rock candy and rye whiskey. Without the rock candy, let's go discuss this matter further.
Now, Blondie Swanson, Broadway, and Goodtime Charlie continue taking their doses, and Blondie keeps getting more enthusiastic about the Dutchman's proposition until finally Broadway becomes enthusiastic as well.
If you will allow it, Dutchman, I think I will go along, as it is an opportunity to see new sections of the country.
All right, Broadway, we may appreciate another hand. But do not forget that if I hear of this on Broadway or any other street,
The Archbishop himself will not pry it out of me.
It will always be the great regret of my life that my business keeps me from going. But I will provide you with an ample store of rock candy and rye whiskey, without the rock candy, in case you run into any touches of the grip.
That's a little louder, a little bit louder, isn't it? It's Christmas music. It's Christmas music. Okay. All right. I'll combine. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a word from another of our fine sponsors, Transcontinental and Western Air.
TWA, the Transcontinental Line.
Whether for business or pleasure, the fastest, most modern way to travel across this great land is by TWA's exclusive air and rail service. Leave New York today and find yourself in sunny California in a mere 48 hours. By day, you'll travel a mile above the farmlands, rivers, and mountains in giant, dependable Ford Trimotor Skyliners. At night, you'll enjoy the sumptuous comforts of fine Pullman cars. So remember,
The Transcontinental Line.
Transcontinental and Western Air Incorporated, Kansas City, Missouri.
They leave Goodtime Charlie's along mid-afternoon on a very cold Christmas Eve. The Dutchman is driving this old can of his with Blondie Swanson up front and Broadway in the back seat. The trip goes through a lot of little towns so fast they seem strung together because most of the time the passengers are dozing. Whenever Blondie happens to wake up, he pokes Broadway awake so they can take a dose of rock candy and rye whiskey without the rock candy. So in many respects, it is quite an enjoyable journey. None of them happen to think of it being Christmas Eve until they notice that there seems to be holly wreaths and Christmas trees in windows here and there. That makes them a little homesick. Although, of course, the chances are none of them would be seeing any Christmas trees, even if they were back home.
the old barn is only a short distance away.
You sure you know where you're going, Dutchman? This road looks awfully rough.
I know I am on the right road. I am following the big star you see up ahead of us, because I remember seeing the star always behind me when I am going along the road before. In fact, There is the barn up ahead.
Hell, that is no star, Dutchman. It's only a light shining through the window of a ramshackle old building off the side of the road.
Well, this looks very much like a star for me from the road, and like my barn, too. But my barn doesn't call for a light in it. Let us pull closer and investigate this matter. You two stay here in case we find it necessary to beat a hasty retreat.
Hell, I think the Dutchman is off his rocker. Follow a star, he says, and that don't look like no barn to me.
Hold your horses, Blondie. The Dutchman waves us over to him.
Come here, fellas. Take a peek.
You see what I'm seeing, Broadway? This is no barn, no doubt, with a manger for horses or maybe cows, but somebody seems to be living in it.
You're right, Blondie. There's a table with chairs around it and a tin stove with a fire in it.
And over in the corner, you see that bed? There's somebody in it.
There's no doubt that's the voice of a doll in distress.
Come away from that window, you mugs. We need to talk this over. This is a bit of a pickle we find ourselves in. We can't simply barge in and start tearing up the joint with that doll in there. Perhaps it's better if we take a flyer and wait until she leaves the place. Besides, it's somewhat likely that if she lives in the barn, she has already found the gripsack.
Why, the doll in this barn seems to be sick, and only a bounder and a cad will walk away from a sick doll. In fact, it'll take a very large heel to do such a thing. The idea is for us to go inside and see if we can do anything for this sick doll.
Chances are the doll's ever-loving husband or somebody is in town or maybe over at the nearest neighbor digging up assistance and will be back in a jiffy, and this is no place for us to be found.
No, it can't be as you state. The snow on the ground is anyway a day old. There are no tracks around the door of this old joint, going or coming. And it's a cinch. If anybody knows there's a sick doll here, they will have plenty of time to get help before this. I'm going inside and look things over.
Who are you? Are you from town? Did you bring Doc Shepherd?
Oh my God. Mary, is it really you?
That is my name, true enough. Who are you? The light is dim. Step closer so I can see you.
It's me, Mary, Blondie.
Blondie, it is you. It's as if heaven sent you to me.
I doubt that Blondie has any connections to heaven. But you obviously need help, miss. Here, let me have a look. Why, it seems we have quite a delicate situation here. This doll is about to pop a kid.
My God, Mary. I'll stay here with you, and these other guys will run and get a doctor.
It's too late to send for a croaker. However, I will do the best I can under the circumstances. Here, miss. This will keep you warm. What's the matter with you, Blondie? You never see a doll drop a kid? Don't worry, Blondie. I may be a little out of practice since my old lady put her checks back in the track. But she leaves 8 kids alive and kicking, and I bring them all in except one, because we're seldom able to afford a croaker. Now, you two step outside and give us some privacy.
But
Come on, Blondie. Let's do as the Dutchman says. He knows what he's doing better than the both of us put together, and plenty more besides that.
Okay, you guys can come back in now and bring that blanket out of the car. We're gonna need something to swaddle this baby in. Take a look, fellas. Noggin's no bigger than a crab apple, and his face is as wrinkled as some old pappy. But it's a boy, and a very healthy one at that. judging by the lungs on the kid.
Will you look at that, Blondie? The Dutchman did a fine job, huh?
Don't mind if I say so myself. And Mama's doing quite well, too. As strong a doll as ever I see.
The baby is Darbero, Dutchman, and a great credit to you in every respect. And also to Miss Mary Jordan, right, Blondie? What's the matter, Blondie? Cat got your tongue?
Not for your yammering, Blondie. What we need to do is send out a croaker to look after Miss Mary and the kid on our way out of town. Although I guarantee the croaker won't have much to do. But first, I'll have some exploring to do. You knuckleheads see if Miss Mary needs anything and keep her company.
Come on, Blondie, snap out of it. You never seen a newborn child before? Go sit in that chair and noodle with Miss Mary while me and the Dutchman do a little exploring.
It pains me greatly to see you in such a state, Mary. All this time I figured you in Akron, Ohio, all married up to some nice accountant guy. How'd you end up in this drafty old barn with a kid, no less?
I was, Blondie, in Akron, and happily married to a nice accountant by the name of Joseph Carpenter. But then Joe gets a nice job in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and they send him down by Allentown to run the books of this steel plant for a spell. We don't have a buggy, so it's nearly an hour each way by bus. But everything's fine for a couple of months. Joe comes home most every night, and I busy myself taking care of the house and the garden. Even do a little acting and singing at the local playhouse. Then one night, this mob of wrong geese breaks into the office where Joe is working late and sticks him up and blows open the safe, taking away a large sum of money and leaving Joe cracked on a noggin and trussed up like a turkey in the oven, where he stays until the coppers find him the next morning.
Now that's a sad state of affairs, Mary, and I can't imagine who could have done something like that.
That's not all, Blondie. This guy named Harold, who is the manager of the factory, pins the caper on Joe, claims it was an inside job, and the cops haul Joe off to the pokey, where he sits to this very day waiting on a trial. Now, I can't leave my Joe here alone in jail. What kind of wife would I be? So I gather up some things and take a bus to be with him. But after a couple months, I have no cabbage for an inn, and with Joe being in the cooler, so I find this old barn, which is on abandoned property owned by a doctor in town by the name of Shepherd. He's a kind-hearted guy and gives me permission to use it any way I wish.
Why, that's nothing but a dirty lie, Mary. Your Joe being involved, and I can prove it.
Eureka! Look at my phone! I told you it was here!
Why, that's quite a nice bundle of lettuce, Dutchman.
That it is, Broadway. 50 G's worth. Now, the first thing for us to do is to get a doctor out here to Miss Mary. And I judge the doctor for us to get is this Doc Shepherd she speaks of.
You fellas go get the croaker. I'll stay here with Mary and the kid.
It's not in my plans to come back once we're on the road, Blondie. We have a precious bundle of our own to deliver, and I'd hate to see anything happen to it.
But we can't just leave Mary and the kid out here, stuck in some rat-infested barn.
Blondie's right, Dutchman. The kid'll surely get the grip, and we're out of rock candy and rye whiskey without the rock candy.
All right, all right. Here, miss, here are a couple of C-notes. When the croaker gets here, you have him get you to a nice room in a warm inn in town. But we can't stay here in case the doc gets too curious and tips off the gendarmes when he gets back to town.
Oh, that's very kind of you. But I don't know what to do now because Joe doesn't stand a chance. Every citizen in the county believes this Harold guy.
I hear what you tell Blondie about your ever-loving Joe. And there is no doubt but what this is the very same young guy we are compelled to truss up the night we get this gripsack. As I recollected, he wishes to battle for his employer's dough, and I personally tap him over the cocoa with a blackjack. But he is by no means the guy who tips us off about the dough being there. As I remember now, It's nobody but the guy whose name you mentioned, the Blondie. It's this guy, Harold, the manager of the joint. And come to think of it, he's supposed to get his bit of this dough for this trouble. Although I do not approve of his conduct towards this Joseph Carpenter.
Then we gotta come clean on the caper. We can't let Mary's ever-loving Joe rot away in the joint over some false accusations.
Don't be a chump, Blondie. I can't spill the beans on this Harold yokel without ratting out myself.
So, the Dutchman takes the grip sack and they get into the old can and head back the way they came. Although before they go, Broadway sees Blondie Swanson bend down over Miss Mary Jordan, now Mrs. Joseph Carpenter, and sees him plant a small kiss on the baby's noggin. It is now along in the early morning, and not many citizens are stirring as they go through the town again. But with Blondie in the front seat, holding the grip sack on his lap. Finally, they find a guy in an all-night diner who knows where Doc Shepard lives. And this citizen stands on the running board of the old can and guides them to a house in a side street. After pounding on the door quite a spell, Blondie rousts the doc and goes inside to talk with him, still hanging on to the grip sack.
Everything is okay. Doc Shepard will go at once to look after Mary and take her to a hospital. I have a couple of C notes with the doc to make sure Mary and the kid get the best of care.
I suppose we can afford a couple of C's out of what we have in the grip sack. Now, let's get out of this burg before things get suspicious. I'm still wondering if it is not my duty to look up this Harold and give him his bit.
I fear I have some bad news for you, Dutchman. This Doc Shepard strikes me as a right guy in every respect, especially as he states to me that he always half suspects there is a wrong rap in on Miss Mary's ever-loving Joe. And if it is not for this guy Harold agitating all the time, other citizens may suspect the same thing, and it'll not be so tough for Joe. So I tell the doc the whole story about Harold and all, and I take the liberty of leaving the grip sack with him to be returned to the rightful owners.
You did what? Why, I ought to cool you off right here and now.
I had to do it, Dutchman, for Mary and the kid. Doc Shepard says if he doesn't have Mary Jo's out of the sneezer and this Harold on the run out in 24 hours, I can call him a liar. But let's proceed on our way, because I only have Doc Shepard's word that he will give us 12 hours leeway before he does anything except attend to Mary, as I figure we need this much time to get out of sight.
Now, the Dutchman does not say anything about all this news for a while and seems to be thinking the situation over. And while he is thinking, he is giving his old can a little more gas than he intends. And she is fairly popping along what seems to be the main drag of town. Pretty soon, a gendarme on a motorcycle comes up behind them, toots his siren, and motions the Dutchman to pull over to the curb.
Where's the fire, fellas? What are you guys carrying in this old skillet anyway? Step out and let me look things over.
This is a nice-looking young gendarme, but he seems somewhat hostile. Naturally, they do not say anything in reply, which is the only thing to say to a gendarme under these circumstances. He peeks into the front and back of the car and under the seats, and all he finds is a bottle which once holds some of Goodtime Charlie's rock candy and rye whiskey, without the rock candy. He holds up this bottle and sniffs at the nozzle and asks, "What is formerly in this bottle?" Broadway technically tells him the truth when he says it was once full of medicine. And the Dutchman and Blondie Swanson nod their heads in support of their pal's statement. But The gendarme, he takes another sniff.
Ah, wise guys, eh? 3 wise guys heading east. On Christmas, no less. That's rich. Trying to kid somebody, eh? Medicine. Ha! Well, if it's not Christmas, I'll take you in and hold you just on suspicion. But I'll be Santa Claus to you this once and let you guys go ahead. Wise guys.
Yeah, that's what we are, to be sure. We're very lucky wise guys. If we aren't wise guys, we still have the grip sack for the copper to find. And if the copper finds the grip sack, he will wish to take us to the jailhouse for investigation. And if he wishes to take us there, I fear he will not be alive at this time, and we will be in plenty of heat around and about. And personally, I'm sick and tired of heat.
And with this, the Dutchman pats a large Betsy in a holster under his left arm, steps on the gas, and the old can begins leaving the lights of town behind.
Well, that was quite some adventure, hey, fellas? Quite a story. I don't suppose you happen to notice the name of that little town, just for the record?
Yeah, I'll see it on a signboard we just passed. It is Bethlehem.
Now they come to learn later that Miss Mary Jordan, who is now Miss Mary Carpenter, is back in Akron, Ohio, with her ever-loving Joseph. And they're quite happy in their love nest with their new baby boy, who they named for Blondie. Not Blondie, though. They use his real name, Caspar. As for me, I am beginning to think there is something special about Goodtime Charlie's on Christmas Eve. And I am looking forward to another story to tell next year.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being with us tonight. Please join us next time for another exciting adventure from the Rocky Mountain Mystery Theater, starring the Rocky Mountain Mystery Players and the Rocky Mountain Mystery Singers. We now return to our regularly scheduled program. We also return you to the year 2023. Good night.